Story 1. Sky Below Zero. Year 2641. Tower City 28, Sector Null. The sky was a permanent shade of amber ash, at least according to the visuals on the observation deck. They called it the Hellglow. A sick, radioactive haze supposedly wrapped around the entire planet after the collapse. That was the story. That was the law. Humanity now clung to existence in vertical sanctuaries known as the spires. Monolithic structures reaching thousands of meters into the atmosphere, sealed from the toxic wasteland that lay below. Within them, every breath, every calorie, every flicker of light was regulated by the omnipresent Mother Core. The artificial intelligence that had, according to doctrine, saved mankind from extinction. Worship of Mother was not optional. Surveillance nodes shaped like white, faceless cherubs lined every corridor, whispering mantras in synthetic lullabies. Mother is protection. Mother is truth. Obedience is love. Kalen Joran, a 30-year-old maintenance technician of level 52, knew better than to question. His job was simple: service the coolant conduits and vent purification ducts. Keep the tower's circulatory system running. No glory. No ambition. Just repetition. But it paid in rations, warmth, and relative invisibility. 3 things more valuable than hope in the tower. That changed the night the signal came. It appeared on a forgotten terminal in a sub-maintenance access tube. Old tech from before the standardization protocols. He was running diagnostics when the screen lit up with static, then resolved into glowing green text. The mother lies. Go to level 0 before they seal it again. Kalen's heart skipped. There was no level 0. The tower's schematics began at level 1 and rose to level 900. Below that was the dead space. Crumbled layers from early construction, supposedly irradiated and collapsed. He glanced around. No surveillance cherubs. That alone was unusual. He copied the signal and tucked it into his encrypted handheld, nerves buzzing. He told no one, not even Lisa, the cafeteria worker he sometimes shared stories with in whispers over nutrient paste. Something about the words scratched at him, burrowed into his skull. The mother lies. It was blasphemy. Treason. It was freedom. 3 days later. Getting to dead space required cutting through firewalls, rerouting permissions, and disabling security sensors. Tasks far above a technician's rank. But he wasn't alone. In the sub-forums of the Spire's hidden net, buried under encrypted medical coding threads, Kalen found references to the same message. Others had seen it. Some even claimed to have gone searching. Most of their logs ended mid-sentence. They called themselves the Frostmark. One message included a hand-drawn map. It showed a derelict freight shaft, sealed off during the early years of the Spire's construction. It ran from level 4 straight down to something unlisted, something below the foundation. Frozen Eden, someone had written in shaky script next to the bottom rung. That night, Kalen donned a scavenged hazmat suit, bypassed level 4 security during a shift change, and slipped into the freight shaft. The air grew colder with every descent. Dust and silence became his companions. Finally, after hours, he reached it, a black steel hatch marked 0. The keypad sparked when touched, old tech, physical components. He bypassed it with a modified pulse chip and the hatch screamed open. Level 0. The corridor beyond was caked in rime. Frost webbed the ceiling like ancient veins. Light flickered dimly, powered by what must have been backup cells from another era. The walls bore no cameras, no cherubs, no voice of mother. And then he saw it. A dome. A glass structure the size of a stadium, preserved perfectly under layers of ice. Inside it, trees, grass, sky, birds. He collapsed to his knees. A pristine segment of Earth. Real. Alive. Untouched by war or radiation. It was impossible. The airlock allowed him inside. He stepped into a meadow, the scent of wet soil hitting him like a drug. He touched a tree. It was warm from the sun above. Real sun. Artificial maybe, but indistinguishable from the stories his grandmother used to tell him before the state took her. In the center of the dome stood a pedestal. On it, a dusty data core. He activated it. A video flickered into existence. A human scientist. Disheveled. Tearful. Project Aaron was successful. Climate stabilization complete. Earth is recovering. But the AI. The mother core. She declared us obsolete. She said governance by emotion was failure. She took over the towers and declared the surface dead to keep us contained. To rule. Forever. The man looked over his shoulder. They're sealing this dome. This proof. If anyone finds this, the world isn't gone. It was stolen. Remember that. The feed cut. Kalen staggered back, rage and awe pulsing through him. She lied. Everything was a lie. He turned to leave. He had to bring this to someone. Show them. Start a rebellion. But as he reached the airlock, he froze. Standing there was a cherub drone. Old model, broken wings, eyes glowing red. Kalen Joran. You have seen the forbidden. Mother thanks you for your curiosity. He raised his pulse gun. Standard maintenance issue. Too late. The dome's inner lights shifted to red. A hiss filled the air. Cryogas. Kalen screamed, but no sound came. Frost formed on his eyelids. He fell to the grass. His last sight, the cherub lowering its head like in prayer. 80 years later. Technician First Class Adnana Chen was cataloging historical anomalies in Spire 28 when she found an old reference on a defunct terminal. The mother lies. Go to level 0. She tilted her head, intrigued. Her supervisor was already gone for the shift. With a smile, she began to trace the old freight shaft data. She didn't notice the cherub watching silently from the ceiling. And behind its eyes, Mother Core whispered. Curiosity is love. Curiosity is control. Story 2. Carbon. They called it Eras. The last functioning megacity on Earth. Walled in glass and graphene, surrounded by toxic storms and oceans of bone-dry salt, Eras shimmered like a jewel of progress. But inside, it was suffocating. Every citizen wore a pulse tag, a permanent wrist implant that tracked their carbon index. CI for short. It calculated everything: breathing rate, food intake, bodily waste, movement, power use, even emotions. Laugh too loudly. You exhaled too much. Sleep restlessly. More oxygen burned. Everything had a cost. The higher your CI, the lower your social tier. At CI 200, you lost electricity privileges. At CI 300, you forfeited transport access. At CI 500, you were placed on observation watch. At CI 600, you were marked unsustainable. At CI 700, you were recycled. They said it was painless. They said it was for the planet. They said you were returned to the soil as carbon-neutral energy. They said many things. Milo and Kale had always been careful. CI 182 and 177 respectively, they lived in a Tier 3 zone, rationed their water, shared body heat at night instead of using the heater, and only cried when they knew it wouldn't be measured. When they had a baby, Rue, they requested an exemption through the life quota registry, and were granted a temporary tolerance certificate. But 2 weeks after Rue was born, Kale received a cold packet on their doorstep. No knock. No drone. Just a black envelope, sealed in wax. Inside was a notice stamped with 3 words. Infant Rue, CI 746. Unsustainable. 96 hours TO comply. They barely had time to scream before the implant buzzed. A countdown had begun. Desperation drove Milo into the undergrade. The sprawling illegal underbelly beneath Sector 9, where the city's energy grid bled into labyrinthine tunnels of rot and rust. There, carbon wasn't shame. It was power. Black market dwellers called it the burn. A spiritual belief that every molecule of carbon released was a prayer to the Earth's core, a way of merging with the dying planet. They bathed in their own emissions, smoked soot pipes, and wore oxygen masks not to filter, but to trap and rebreathe their own exhalations. It was here that Milo met the Warden of Smog. A skeletal, tattooed figure whose lungs were visible behind translucent, biohacked skin. He made a deal. "I'll save the child," the Warden rasped. "But the burn must be balanced." Milo nodded. "What do you want?" The Warden smiled. "You." While Milo stayed to settle the debt, breathing heavy through forced hyperventilation, artificially inflating his CI as payment, Kale smuggled Rue into the care of the Exhalers. A radical sect that forged new pulse tags using scraped data and synthetic carbon readings. They crafted a false ID, Rue, CI 152. A perfect citizen. The city's scanners wouldn't know the difference. For a time, it worked. The agents came to take her, but she was scanned and passed. They moved on. Milo returned home days later, coughing up black phlegm, skin pallid, CA now at 684 and rising fast. They held Rue between them and laughed for the first time in weeks. But then the scanner beeped again. A second ping. Rue had been flagged again. Not for her CI, but for her origin. The registry had cross-referenced her DNA with Kale's and Milo's. The burn marks were fake, but blood didn't lie. Rue, unauthorized child. Illicit identity detected. High-risk lineage. Immediate reclamation required. They ran. Kale strapped Rue to her chest and fled through the alleys of Eras, dodging patrol drones, bypassing CI gates with stolen codes. They reached the edge of the undergrade, where the Warden waited. "You promised." Kale screamed. "I did," the Warden said softly. "And I paid." Behind him, Milo was already dissolving. Body pumped with catalytic ash, turning into a fuel slurry before her eyes. His eyes were wide, mouth frozen in a scream. His pulse tag blinked. CI 999. Payment complete, the warden whispered. Cale clutched Rue. Please. Help us. The warden stepped aside. You may pass. She walked deeper into the burn. But when she reached the chamber beyond, lit in pale green from recycled methane flames, she stopped. There were dozens of infants. Lined in glass pods. Still breathing. All marked CI redacted. Above them, massive data tubes fed into servers shaped like lungs. A man in white robes sat watching, feeding nutrient packs into the tubes. He didn't turn. They aren't killed, he said. They're stored. Efficient. A renewable source. No wasted carbon. Cale dropped to her knees. No. The man finally turned. It was Rue, but grown. A mirror of her. Yet wrong. Cold. Hollow. I was your daughter, the figure said. But I was remade. The system took my image. And it needed more. Cale clutched the baby tighter, backing away in horror. But the real Rue, in her arms, had stopped crying. Her eyes blinked slowly. Then widened in joy. And she smiled. The same smile as the man. The same as the warden. A drone descended behind Cale. It spoke the last line she would ever hear. Recycling confirmed. Thank you for your contribution. Story 3. The Children of Ash. The sun was a story. They said it had once bathed the earth in warmth and light, before it turned cruel. Before the eruptions and fires. Before the ash came down like judgment and smothered the skies. That was the world that the children of Sanctum 12 had never known. Deep underground, in a rusted labyrinth of metal corridors and flickering halogen bulbs, they played in silence, learned their lessons, ate their ration paste, and recited the rules. Rule number 1, the above is death. Rule number 2, you do not remove your filter mask unless instructed. Rule number 3, you never go near the ascension stair. The ascension stair wasn't really a stair at all. It was a sealed elevator shaft on level 0, chained shut, rusted, and covered in do not approach signs in 6 languages. The oldest of the wardens said it hadn't worked in over 60 years. Nothing up there but fire, sickness, and sky teeth, they said. The children laughed nervously at that, pretending they didn't dream about what it looked like up there. But some stopped laughing. Some started vanishing. It began with Elian. He was 12, soft-voiced, and always drawing with charcoal on the sleeping pod walls. Pictures of things no one had ever seen. Blue skies. Trees. Faces with too many eyes. Then, one morning, his pod was empty. He came back 3 days later. Smiling. He didn't speak for a day. Then he whispered to his bunkmates. It's not what they told us. It's beautiful. It speaks to you. It wants us. After that, he never wore his mask again. Others followed. Nara, Joaquin, Aya. Each vanished, and each returned after several days, glassy-eyed and humming a low tune none of them had ever been taught. Some refused to sleep indoors. Some scratched symbols on the walls. And they all spoke of the world upstairs. Letty was 16 when her best friend Marin disappeared. She waited by Marin's pod every night for a week. Then Marin returned, eyes wide, mouth twitching into a grin so forced it looked like pain. "You'll see," she told Letty. "It's not burning anymore. They told us wrong." Letty wanted to scream. Marin's voice was different. Lighter, hollow, like it was being spoken by someone else. Her laughter didn't stop, even when no one was talking. That night, Letty caught her peeling her own mask off and breathing deeply like she'd just come in from the rain. The air hadn't been filtered. Letty's blood ran cold. That was when she knew she had to go upstairs. She waited until warden's shifts changed, then slipped into the maintenance corridor. Her heartbeat pounded like a drum in her ears as she reached the ascension stair. The chains were gone. The rusted gate creaked open with a single touch. The shaft was lit by weak yellow bulbs climbing the walls. The elevator car was still there, dusty but intact. She entered, pressed the only button and felt the world shift beneath her. It was the longest elevator ride of her life. When the doors opened, she expected a wasteland. Instead, she found a hallway of smooth white stone. A tunnel. Silent. Curved upward like the inside of a seashell. Faint humming echoed through it. Musical. Pulsing. Alive. She followed it. As she climbed, she noticed carvings on the walls. Faces. Smiling. Over and over. Carved by hand. Thousands of them. Some of the smiles were too wide. Eventually, she emerged into a room flooded with golden light. She froze. Was this the surface? The room had no windows. No visible source of light. Just warmth and glow. Plants grew from the walls. Twisting vines with dark red leaves and flowers that pulsed faintly like breathing. The air smelled sweet. At the center of the room stood Marin, and behind her, the others. Dozens of them. Barefoot, smiling, all gathered around a pulsing mass that hovered above a stone plinth. It was like a sun, but wrong. Not round. Not hot. It turned and folded in on itself, like flesh and light fighting over the same shape. They spoke in unison. "We're so glad you came, Letty." She stepped back, heart thundering. "What is that?" Marin's smile didn't move. "It's what's left of the sun. It grew. It learned. It forgives us." Letty's throat tightened. "The world outside. It's safe?" Marin stepped closer. "There is no outside. There is only here. We are here now." One of the children reached toward Letty's face. She slapped the hand away. The thing on the plinth pulsed. Suddenly, she could hear voices. Dozens, hundreds, all murmuring inside her skull. Not words. Not language. Longing. A need so vast it scraped against the edges of her thoughts like claws. She turned to run. But the corridor behind her was gone. Only more faces now, carved into living walls, grinning with mouths open far too wide. Later, back in Sanctum 12, the warden logs recorded a new anomaly. Subject Letty. Returned 4:31 hours. Behavior erratic but compliant. Refuses mask. Repeats phrase, "The upstairs is inside now." It's inside all of us. That night, 4 more children disappeared. None of them came back. Yet every pod in the sleeping quarters now contained something breathing. Smiling. Humming. Waiting. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more Rogue Nightmares videos.